You have reached the deepest depths of the internet. If it is greatness you seek, you've come to the wrong show. If it's about not wasting time, don't worry, you're never going to get your time back. If it's knowledge you seek, just be aware, any knowledge gained here is going to be minuscule. So now it's time for Accost the Field with Tony Gerdeman on the Ozone Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to Accost the Field / post-game Facebook Live. I'm Tony Gerdeman, this is Tom Orr. Tom, we saw a lot of rain and just as many touchdowns from Dwayne Haskins as we've come to expect. Buckeyes win 52-3, never a doubt. The thing that impressed me most was, we came into this game wondering what the passing game was going to look like, how much would Dwayne Haskins be affected. He wasn't affected at all. And the other thing that I was expecting is drops. We saw drops before the game. Receivers were just, not catching just routine passes. And they caught everything. 3 incompletions on the day.
Yeah.
I don't know that any of them were drops. I think three errant passes of his 23 from Dwayne Haskins. But the passing game was totally unaffected by the weather.
Yeah, we've come to expect over the years Ohio State, looks great when it's sunny and warm or they're in a dome. They can zip the ball all over the place. And then towards the end of the year when it gets colder, it gets windy, it's rainy. You remember literally every game that's been played in Champaign, Illinois for the last century. It always looks like that. Today, it was raining consistently. It wasn't super windy, but it was raining very consistently all day, starting in pregame warm-ups. And it had no impact. The numbers were better than you would have expected against a, remotely alive Rutgers defense on a nice day. So, to go 30 for 33 for 354 yards, 5 touchdowns, that's you literally cannot do much better than that.
No, and you probably don't do that well inside the WAC, against each other and sometimes even air. So that, for me, that was the most impressive thing. Dwayne Haskins, I think it's okay to start buying in. The offense is more efficient than we've ever seen it, ever seen it. This is like 2 straight 1996 openers, but even that wasn't just the level of the passing game is outstanding. The running game, I wouldn't say they struggled. They just weren't, they weren't so concerned about it because the passing game is so good. And then, of course, Tate Martell comes in and totally transforms a struggling running game pretty much single-handedly with 95 yards rushing. But I don't recall, and we've seen Urban Meyer set records every single year basically with total offense, that he's been at Ohio State. There's always some sort of record. And we've seen, I believe, since he's arrived, Ohio State has averaged 450 yards of offense per game, and that's including, some down years. Mm-hmm. But what Ohio State is doing now, it's something we haven't ever really seen before. And granted, it's Oregon State and it's Rutgers, but I still feel pretty good about this offense going in next week, going against anybody in the Big Ten. And when we talk about Dwayne Haskins and comparing him to J.T. Barrett, it was always, Haskins is the guy who can take them over the top. And we haven't seen anything so far to make us question that.
No, we haven't. We had talked on Accost the Field earlier this summer about the fact that the delta with Dwayne Haskins was much bigger than it was with J.T. Barrett, where J.T. Barrett had stuff he was good at. J.T. Barrett had some limitations. J.T. Barrett was not going to, J.T. Barrett was going to win you 10, 11 games every year. Dwayne Haskins, if it didn't look great, Dwayne Haskins could have been an 8-4 kind of quarterback. If it did look great, it could be an Ohio State offense unlike anything you've seen in your life. And it's looking pretty darn good right now.
Well, it's a surprise when they don't score. And the first time they punted with Dwayne Haskins, it was 3rd and 8 or something, and they just throw a little dink pass. And you're it's almost like they wanted to get Drew Chrisman work. They are so efficient, and they have so many 3rd and shorts that it just works so well right now. The passing game, the running game. We saw some J.K. Dobbins got some more work today. Mike Weber 8 for 31. But even with the running game not being great, it doesn't feel like anybody is struggling. It feels like everybody is still clicking. They didn't run as much tempo like they did last week. Ryan Day said that in the postgame, and you could see, you knew that just from watching because they brought back the Meerkat offense a little bit. They'd get up and then they'd look over to the sideline to see what play they wanted. But I'm just both weeks just impressed by the control of Dwayne Haskins, the execution of the receivers, and the adequacy of the running game, which is stupid because it was still like 225, 230 yards, something like that today.
40 carries, 225 yards. That's 5.6 per carry, which, there was a big chunk run by Tate Martell, but Dobbins averaged 6.1 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. Mike Weber had only 3.9, and 3.9 yards. That feels like, well, what was wrong? What happened? What was wrong? 3.9 yards is fine. That's not.
Well, he only had 8 carries. You give him a ninth, and that's a 62-yarder.
And it seemed like Rutgers was more willing to try and stop the run, and I'm sure they came in with the game plan. Hey, it's windy, it's rainy, make them throw the ball to beat you, and they executed that game plan perfectly. They made Ohio State throw the ball, and Ohio State threw the ball, and they beat them. And
they threw it very well. And the thing you have to realize about Rutgers, they run pretty much a similar defense to Ohio State, the quarters defense. So Ohio State came into this game knowing what they're going to get. They see it every day in practice. Ryan Day said after the game that they plan to run a lot of posts against the quarter defense. As long as they got the right looks. They got the right looks today. And Johnny Dixon talked to him after the game. He said they were talking all week that they were going to be able to hit some shots just because of the style of defense that Rutgers plays. It also didn't help Rutgers that they were without their best player, Bleswan Austin. Mm-hmm. They had the other senior corner had some rough moments. They had a freshman corner in there. So it was not a recipe for success for Rutgers secondary. It was just maybe a perfect storm, no pun intended. It was just rain. There was no lightning, but just was not a good situation for Rutgers defensively against the pass.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, the offense didn't set them up for success either. There were a whole lot of 3-and-outs, a whole lot of. Mm-hmm. I tweeted from the Ozone account at one point in the first half. Their first drives were like 3 yards, 7 yards, 20 yards, 0 yards, 0 yards, and meanwhile Ohio State's going 60, 70.
Running tempo against defense that just left the field 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, and not only did they leave the field 2 minutes ago, Ohio State's getting the ball at the 30, the 40. Rutgers is taking over. They had a kickoff return that they took out to the 12 or something, and about the best field position they had all day was about the 25. So you're losing the field position battle. Your defense can't get rested. You're a little shorthanded in the defensive backfield.
You lose your starting quarterback.
You lose your starting quarterback about halfway through.
He wasn't.
They didn't look any worse in the second half.
Was it you who said before the game we were talking like this was going to be like a 10 for 29 performance? Quarterback, or was it somebody else?
It might have been someone else.
I think they finished 10 for 28 total.
11 for 30.
11 for 30. So I think we've talked enough about Dwayne Haskins. It's time to talk about everybody's hero, everybody's All-American, Tate Martell. Finally got to, as Ryan Day said, got a chance to show everybody what he could do. We already knew, but everybody else, the 42,000 in the stands, got to see it. 10 for 10, 120?
Yeah, 10 for 10, 121 yards and a touchdown. On the ground, 8 carries, 95 yards and a touchdown. That's, pretty good.
Pretty efficient, which is the story of this offense. But, we got to see, it was funny, somebody on our message board, Tate is like 8 for 8 or whatever, and it's like, hey, he can pass now. And then somebody else is like, yeah, but he can't run anymore. Then, 10 minutes later, he busts out the 50-yarder. It was good to see him out there. You could see he was smiling, perma grin in the postgame. We talked to him. He came up to the podium after the game, just very happy to actually get out there and play quite a bit, be able to do both, passing and running. And these weren't all easy throws. I mean, he made some really difficult throws, throwing to his left, pinpoint on the sideline, the deep pass to Terry McLaurin. He looked like a fine quarterback.
He did. He looked like a perfectly solid quarterback, which is, more than I think a lot of people probably would have expected. There were a couple of those throws. You said they were not all easy throws. There were a few of those throws that were like, I don't know if he should be making this throw right now, and he made all of them, which is
a lot of them on the move and just completely comfortable. That was another thing he said after the game is like, I know everything that's going on. Like I'm in complete control. I know what I'm seeing. I know the coverages. I know the protections. And whereas that wasn't the case last year. And, he showed it. I mean, he looks in, control just like Dwayne Haskins. And it's a credit to Ryan Day, who I don't know how much longer he's going to be around here. But when he does leave, Ohio State's going to miss him.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Day, from the quarterback perspective, from the play calling perspective, from the acting head coach perspective, I don't know how much more impressive he could be in all three of those roles.
Yeah.
To be doing all three of them at the same time is pretty crazy to be executing at the level.
He needs a raise. He's underpaid right now.
Question from our friend Mike Meals. Which had more impact on the performance of the game, the weather or Rutgers' talent, and which one affected the Buckeyes' play and game plan? I don't really think that either one really had much impact. I think the Buckeyes kind of, right?
It was the Ohio State talent.
It was. Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly there was a talent gap there that you see every time these two teams play. The weather had no discernible impact. I mean,
it may have impacted Rutgers' offense because Sikowski was not accurate, but that you could just easily attribute that to the pressure.
Yeah,
pressure.
He was back there. He got drilled once or twice early, and then he did not look comfortable back there at any point after that. A lot of happy feet, a lot of throwing way before. I mean, you could see him hearing the footsteps from hundreds of feet away.
He was throwing the ball between receivers, like before they had broken out of their routes or were even looking for the football. There were times you didn't know who he was throwing to because it was so inaccurate. The funny thing is he gets sacked by Chase Young, fumbles it, but they don't overturn the call on the field, and then basically gets knocked out after that. The next play or the next play or two by Nick Bosa. If they would have called it correctly and called it a fumble, maybe he finishes the fourth quarter and maybe they score 6 points. Maybe.
An offensive explosion. If you guys are listening as a podcast, this offer does not apply to you, but if you're watching us on Facebook Live, feel free to ask us questions in the comments below. We will be happy to answer those as they come in.
The Ohio State defense, I don't know what you can expect from an offense, a Rutgers offense, with a true freshman quarterback making his second start. But we weren't seeing the mistakes this week that we saw last week. Baron Browning was more solid. Yeah, I think he only had one tackle. But what we weren't seeing was guys who should have been somewhere where they weren't. They were swarming to the football more. Just a more complete outing by the defense and a more team-oriented outing by the defense. So I think they corrected some of the issues they had last week.
At least in the run game, there was, the passing game, you can say, okay, well, they really weren't tested because Rutgers kept throwing incomplete passes. In the run game, Ohio State got gashed a few times last week in the run game, and Rutgers went 31 carries for 69 yards,
nice,
2.2 yards per carry. That's not great.
No, it's not great.
Long run was 15 yards. They had a couple 15-yard runs, one by the backup quarterback. The safety play, Jordan Fuller. I think we knew this last week. Without Jordan Fuller there, this defense looks pretty different. And we saw a little bit more of Tuff Borland today. I didn't get a play count for him. He played 10 plays last week. I felt like it was more than that this week. But he was still not the main linebacker. But we saw more of him, which certainly helps as well.
Yeah, and he was coming off the field in nickel as well, it seemed, whereas Baron Browning would go in. Pete Werner was there aren't a lot of tackles for the linebackers, it seems. I don't know if it's because the defensive line is getting them. But, having Jordan Fuller back is huge, and Greg Schiano said so after the game. We got to see him and Isaiah Pryor back to his position that he was expected to play. I thought he played better. But really, the safeties weren't necessarily tested because, there wasn't enough time to even look deep or go deep. And that's 2 weeks in a row where the corners have been fine. I don't think there was any issue last week. I don't think there was any issue this week. One of the new faces on defense was Sean Wade, coming in as nickel, which Greg Schiano said after the game he's just been progressing, and they wanted to get him out on the field. Had the interception. I was not surprised by him getting an interception.
No.
If you've seen any of his highlights in high school, the guy finds the football very Malik Hooker-like. in that aspect, even though they play different positions. But Sean Wade's a guy who's going to continue to see the field and was good in run support. Missed one tackle, but he was right there and hit the guy on like a 3rd and 8 and stopped him for like a 5-yard gain. A guy to be excited about.
Yeah, and this is someone who you should be excited about for this year because it gives you a 4th corner that is, ready to play. You're gonna face some spread offenses. Mm-hmm. Having 4 guys out there that you are extremely comfortable with. I think I feel pretty good about Marcus Williams too, which gives you 5. But at least to have Arnett, Sheffield, Okudah, Wade, those are 4 guys that give you a very strong defensive backfield this year. It's even bigger for next year because if Arnett and Sheffield both go, then you've got Okudah and Wade. You've got 2 starting-ish corners coming back next year too.
The interesting thing is, it's a 3-man rotation at corner with Okudah and Arnett and Sheffield, but Wade played just as much as those guys because he was the nickel back. Mm-hmm. Whereas, it used to be Arnett being the nickel, and that would maybe, I don't know, it wouldn't make the rotation as deep because the 3 of them would be playing at the same time. Whereas now they can continue that 3-man rotation and let Sean Wade take those nickel reps, which makes everybody fresher. But it also allows Wade to be comfortable and play corner if you need him.
Right.
And it's just a luxury to have the depth, but the talent as well.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, the nickel, you're generally not lining up against one of the outside receivers. You're lining up against that slot receiver. That's when you're looking for Sean Wade, and we say he's the nickel. That's where you're going to find him on the field. Question from Rick Emery: will Chase Young be forced to miss any of the TCU game as a result of today's ejection? The Big Ten, Ohio State came out before the press conference tonight and said, no. The Big Ten said he's fine. This is not like a targeting call in the second half of the game where you have to miss the first half of the following game. He got booted from this game, which I'm sure that was not how he wanted his game with 2 sacks to end, because he played a great game.
And then after
his
day was over.
Yeah, but still.
Did you see how far he went out on the field? I didn't.
I didn't see. I missed that. But yeah, he got booted for. He was on the sidelines and went out on the field at one point celebrating. Was it the Martell? He was celebrating something. Oh, and it was the Sean Wade interception, right? He went on the field celebrating the Sean Wade interception, and that was an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. He had the one in the first half for spiking the football after the sack of Arthur Sitkowski that should have been a fumble, wasn't a fumble.
Greg Schiano said after the game he likes that energy, he likes the excitement. I'm thinking maybe if Chase Young, when he ran out onto the field, if he would have just pretended he was going out with the offense, no, I'm lining up at tight end, and then he would have to have stayed out there, and played some offense. Then maybe he wouldn't have gotten ejected, and then he could have caught a touchdown pass from Tate Martell or Dwayne Haskins or even Chugs.
I think you're missing the really obvious solution here. He wears number 2. J.K. Dobbins wears number 2. Chase Young starting tailback next week.
There you go.
I
bet he would do better than 3.9 yards per carry like Mike Weber did today.
Anything else that you heard that was particularly interesting post-game?
Dwayne Haskins was, to go back to the offense. He says when he's talking, there's no question that he is completely comfortable with everything about being the Ohio State quarterback, and that's dealing with the media, dealing with the pressure. It doesn't feel like there's any pressure. He's looking forward to next week. I think he said we'll be ready or we're ready for them. The guy, he is a starting quarterback. Everything. Even beyond the arm, it's the aura and the demeanor and the mannerisms. He looks completely. They don't ever want anybody to be comfortable because when you're comfortable, then you're not progressing. But there's no reason to be concerned. This is too much for him, or he's buying into his own hype. I don't think he's going to be going to In-N-Out, all week. They're not going to fly out to Dallas early.
They have In-N-Out in Texas. Got to watch.
So you will have to watch out for that.
Fuel City tacos. You never know.
But he's just completely at ease with his whole situation.
Really, the only thing we haven't seen from him is how does he handle adversity. When he comes out, if he comes out against TCU and throws a first half interception or 2, and they're down 13-3 in the second quarter. what does he do then? We haven't really seen him. I mean,
how does he respond to a pick six to start the game like JT Barrett has had?
Sure, and I mean, he has certainly faced some adversity in his career. I mean, the coming in on the road behind against Michigan, facing third and long. I mean, that's some adversity, but that was not adversity of his own making. We'll see if the confidence is at all impacted if there's an interception or two, because it's been close to perfect.
Yeah, and let me ask you this: last year he did that as a redshirt freshman. His whole redshirt freshman season last year was pretty good, but what we saw from Tate Martell, redshirt freshman, it doesn't compare to what we saw today. I mean, Haskins was good last year. Tate Martell, outstanding.
I mean, how can you be better than perfect?
You can't be
10 for 10. Try and do better than that.
Yeah, you can't. Try being 11 for 10. Try it. See how it works.
It
won't work. Yeah. Defensively, Chase Young, as you said, 2 sacks. I think was it PFF that said he had 9 pressures on 18 dropbacks. Last week. I don't know how his numbers were this week, but the 2 sacks and should have been a forced fumble in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But a guy who he is also living up to the hype, and with him and Nick Young and Draymond Jones is quiet today. I think they were really concerned with him, but Nick Bosa gets all of this attention. Chase Young was getting a lot of preseason hype from the fan base, and I was like, people need to chill a little bit on like number 1 draft pick and all of that stuff. But he certainly responded well today from. Not getting to the quarterback last week, he got to them plenty, and really looks like an all Big Ten level player. A guy who Michigan fans think Rashawn Gary is. This is who Chase Young is.
Yeah, that was a real impressive performance from him. 2 sacks today, loss of 18 yards on those. Nick Bosa had 5 tackles, 3 for loss, mm-hmm. 1 sack. I mean, Bosa's still getting more, I think, focus from the opposition. So
there's a time he was like triple teamed.
Yeah,
and go ahead and do that if you want, because that just leaves other people who are going to go murder your quarterback.
Yeah, I mean that's if you're worried about Nick Bosa and Draymond Jones, that's great. Then Robert Landers had a tackle for loss today.
Had one last week too.
Yeah, I mean, and the depth at defensive tackle, at defensive end is such that they just keep churning those guys out there. They keep rotating. I mean, we didn't see quite as deep a rotation this week as we did last week, but they probably had, I wasn't counting, but they probably had at least 10, 12 guys out there.
Because all of the freshmen were out there again,
we saw
Davon Hamilton and
Tyler. We saw Tyler
Haskell
Friday,
Garrett,
Tyreek Smith.
So I think all of the scholarship guys who are able to play, aside from the couple of freshmen who aren't going to, they all played again, and I think the only difference was that they didn't have the walk-on defensive ends this time around. Mm-hmm. You wonder, like, how much will that shrink against TCU, and it's still going to be 8 to 10, in that rotation just because of the talent they have. Because Haskell Garrett's not going to sit; he's going to be in there, and we know Davon Hamilton will play. Tommy Togiai, I mean, what do they do with him? He's impressive. Do they put him in there? I guess it just depends on how long TCU has the ball. How much are they driving, and are they wearing the Ohio State defense down? But the depth on the defensive line did not make life easy or any easier for the Rutgers offense, and just a dominant day for the Buckeye defense as we expected. And I don't know that you can chalk it up to weather. It was just a determined unit who had some talking tos this week, and they responded.
Yeah, they had. There was some talk about the fact that was sort of addressed this week. That was not an acceptable performance last week, and they definitely answered the bell today. And you can obviously point to true freshman quarterback making his first start on the road, which absolutely true.
It's true.
But the way you rattle that guy is by drilling him real early, making him uncomfortable. That's exactly what they did. They were in his face all day. You saw the result of that. That was happy feet.
Hit him early, and then he hears the steps the rest of the game.
Yep. Going to special teams. Question from Treeback. Punt returns sure are fun, huh?
I thought KJ Hill, and I said this before the game, I thought KJ Hill might be the punt returner because of the rain and because he's got the best hands, supposedly. CJ Saunders is back there. They tried to let DeMario do it. He had two iffy ones. Tom, I was thinking at some point they should probably just not put anybody back there and just, if the ball bounces to the 5, that's fine. That's 95 yards of offense coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is the 3 things can happen and 2 are bad. That's basically it on punt returns today. 3 things can happen.
Didn't Jim Tressel say the punt return is the worst play in football? It's like the least important, the worst play, or something to that effect.
It's just because he loved punting so much. The punt is the most important play, so therefore the opposite of the
punt return is the worst thing about football.
Yeah,
although he had Ted Ginn, so he would never have said that.
Yeah. It was a little bit of an adventure. I think people were having Jalen Marshall flashbacks on Twitter at times today. I mean, the ball's wet. I mean, they had issues last week. Saunders, I think, muffed one last week, but that was, someone got real close to him.
Yeah, it wasn't totally his fault. He got hit twice last week.
Yeah, he got hit twice last week, once by his own guy, so it wasn't a penalty. That, I think, was the one that was the muff. Today, McCall fumbled one and got back on it. But
even when, Jalen Marshall, he was successful. He was so ballsy running up and returning stuff. But, there was still danger there. Even Curtis Samuel tried it a couple times over, in 2016. They really haven't had somebody who's secure since Philly Brown, but even I think he had a bad muff and a loss one of those years. So it's just this really difficult thing. KJ Hill was not perfect last year, and he was just a guy who was just supposed to catch the ball. Mm-hmm. But I guess, if you only turn it over once, once a game via the punt return, mm-hmm. Is that really so bad?
Against Rutgers? No.
No.
Against TCU? Don't do that next week. I mean, the last time we saw Ohio State playing down in Jerry World, didn't KJ Hill muff a punt and went diving for it and someone landed on his shoulder and that was the end of his season?
So, I mean, don't put anybody back there. Just take the yards. Although the conditions will be much better next week. Maybe C.J. Saunders, he had a nice return today. So maybe as long as he catches it, nobody hits him before he catches it, he'll be okay. DeMario, you feel a little bad for that guy, and he wants to prove himself. You just wonder, will he get an opportunity to do so?
He certainly seems like he's buried on offense, and so special teams is the spot where he has a chance to make an impact. He came into the season as the number 1 punt returner, number 1 kick returner.
I thought he was gone on that kickoff return.
Yeah, he
got tripped up a little bit before he was ready to kick it outside or inside.
Yeah, it looked like someone just got a hand on him just enough to kind of throw him off balance enough that he ended up running straight into the kicker. But yeah, there was definitely a moment where it was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it looked like he was gone.
Because what was our over-under that we set? 1.5? I think I might have bet the over. I was almost halfway there.
Not bad for game 2.
Yeah.
I like seeing him at kick returner. I don't think they need Johnny Dixon there, personally. I mean, and he took a hard hit to the knee. I think there was a knee to head early in the game. I don't like him back there. He's too valuable, as we saw today in the passing game. There's no reason for him to be back there. Give DeMario some chances there. Almost just to keep his spirits up, because it is hard. There are no reps at H-back. But they will lose Paris Campbell, likely lose KJ Hill after this year. So the depth chart, he'll rise up it. And I think we're all still looking forward to seeing what he can do with a regular role on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, he will have that chance will come. You get a chance to shine on special teams right now. Make the most of that. And then next year, those snaps are going to be there because it's presumably him, C.J. Saunders, Jalen Gill at age next year. And I mean, they have played 3 guys there this year. Mm-hmm. So in like first half, not like garbage time. So those snaps are going to be there next year. So make the most of your opportunity now. Yeah. And I think he was the person a lot of people were hoping to see at kick and punt returner last year because he has that. He does seem more explosive than KJ Hill or.
Well, and there's it's a double-edged sword. He's more explosive, but sometimes the ball explodes when it hits his hands. Or his hands explode when the ball hits them. So you take the good with the bad, and that's not something the coaches will. That's not something they want to do. They don't want any bad with the good. They just want the good.
Well, and the way the offense has looked so far, you don't need to make plays on special teams in order to win. You need to not turn the ball over on special teams in order to win with the offense playing the way it is right now. Now, let's see what happens. Let's see what this offense looks like against TCU. next week, if the offense all of a sudden is limited to 24 points, maybe you do need to try and make a play on special teams to flip field position or score a touchdown or get yourself in field goal range. They haven't needed it the first 2 weeks, so it's easy to say just fair catch everything.
Right.
Just don't put anyone back there. That
that's fine for this game.
You're playing a team that actually knows how to play football next week. So.
You'll need every yard. You'll go in thinking you'll need every yard. Mm-hmm. So talking about TCU, did you watch any of them on Friday?
A little bit. I watched the first half when they looked like hot garbage for a decent amount of it. They apparently did not look like hot garbage in the second half of it.
No.
But, I mean, SMU is not. Sonny, I don't remember what the last 3 games of Sonny Dykes at SMU, the cumulative score is, but it's something like 130 to
it's not good.
40 or something. I mean, they're kind of rebuilding that, starting anew after what's his name left for Arkansas.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably turned the game off at the half. It was late. There's like a 2-hour delay, so I'm sure a lot of Buckeye fans went to bed feeling really good about this game next week. And I think they'll go to bed tonight feeling pretty good because the conditions are going to be perfect. And you would think that gives an advantage to Ohio State's passing game, to their running game. And defensively, it's almost like, well, if Ohio State gets involved in a shootout, they have the advantage there as well. TCU's quarterback, Sean Robinson.
Yep.
Didn't look great. Had some accuracy issues, but they do have some very talented wide receivers.
Yeah.
And so I think this will be the first time all year that the corners are tested, like really, really tested play after play. So I'm looking forward to watching that to see how they respond. And again, it's just fun to watch Shaun Wade out there because he looks so happy to be out there and he's making plays.
Yeah, Shaun Wade and Tate Martell both look real happy to be out there and involved. Yeah, Cavante Turpin next week for TCU is by far the most explosive player I think that OSU is going to face this year. And I mean, is that a Kendall Sheffield? Is that a Damon Arnett matchup?
Well,
I mean, either one. I think.
I don't think the corners probably won't match up. They'll just stay on their side of the field, especially if TC is going to be running tempo. But Cavante Turpin, Jalen Reagor, who is their other receiver. They've got others besides those two, but those guys are both very dangerous, very fast, and going to be the first real matchup for these corners. I think they've looked great. Jeff Okuda with the PIs last week, should have never happened, but they haven't been tested. The pass rush hasn't allowed it. The quarterback accuracy hasn't allowed it. That's going to change a little bit next week. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, seeing how the safeties respond as well. Should be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a game that we have to pay attention to after the middle of the second quarter. That'll be fun and different. Can't wait. I mean, go back to the Cotton Bowl. Really didn't need to. I mean, really, the Big Ten championship game is about the last game that the second half has been worth watching.
And even that one, I mean, it was Ohio State had a good lead and they just trestle balled and took their time with it. Anything else from today?
I don't think so. We'll have plenty more to talk about when we do our midweek show.
Yeah.
And then we'll head down to Dallas on Friday.
Friday night, get there, and probably too late for the bars, which is not a bad thing, I guess, since we have to work the next day. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out the coverage on neozone.net. We'll have all kinds of stuff up there from this game moving forward towards the TCU game. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we will talk to you later.
Well, she threw away the motel key. I wish it never meant nothing to me. Say you will, now say you will. Oh yeah. Say you will, now say you will. If you tell me that tomorrow's alright, we could steal a car and leave.